Hello, welcome to today's DILAX Lab episode. My name is Romina Lecherbauer, and I'm the Senior Market Development Manager for the Spanish and Portuguese market here at DILAX. Our Berlin office, where I'm sitting right now, is located in the heart of the city and very easy to get to by public transport. But even in big cities like Berlin, Brussels, or Madrid, which is the city that we'll talk about today, that isn't always the case. For many people, especially for those who live in the outskirts of the city, the nearest train or bus station is often a 20-minute walk away, and sometimes even longer. So this is what we call the last mile. This is not only an issue of convenience, but of accessibility. Not everyone can walk longer distances to reach the train or the bus. Therefore, mobility planners must consider the last mile, especially when it comes to suburban areas. Besides improving the infrastructure, one possibility is to provide alternatives such as shared scooters or bikes for unacceptably long distances. This in turn may even bring more people to the public transport. Study the impact that emerging mobility solutions have on the urban mobility ecosystem is the goal of the Momentum project, which we will talk about today. My guest is Niklas Schmalholz, Project and Communications Officer at Police Network, the initiator of the Momentum project. You set out to develop new data analytics methods and planning tools to support cities in the designing the right policy mix to exploit the full potential of emerging mobility solutions. How can cities verify the changes certain new mobility options bring about in their mobility ecosystem? And how can they track passenger behavior? We will talk about this in reference to the work you did with MT Madrid, and I'm already curious to hear more. So welcome, Niklas, and thank you very much for being here today. Niklas.
Thank you very much for the invitation, yeah.
Our pleasure. Well, Police started this project in 2019, and you joined it as a project and communications officer in 2020. So can you tell us a bit more about the initial objective of the project and what role you play in it?
Yeah, as I said, thank you very much for the invitation. My role is to coordinate the communication and dissemination efforts. This basically means that I was the person who took care of the social media, the press releases, the online communication, content creation, and I also have recorded some videos during the COVID-19 pandemic. So basically, I am very familiar with the setting, and so I know this is always a great opportunity to share some stories. Our role as Polis, which is my employer, is a communicator. So we are normally translating complicated analysis and deliverables. So deliverables are longer documents that summarize the work of the project, like, for example, Momentum or other projects that I'm working on. So these are EU-funded projects. Momentum is part of the Horizon 2020 project framework, which now became Horizon Europe. And so Polis is normally the connector between the real world, let's say, and the academics who do the analysis. So we are an organization of 100 members who are all cities, and we basically share the content with them, and we are trying to provide all the information to our members. So we are basically multiplicator in that sense. And for the disclaimer that I wanted to say, the problem was because the project started in May 2019, as you have mentioned in your introduction. COVID hindered us to visit the 4 pilot cities of Momentum. The 4 pilot cities are Leuven in Belgium, Thessaloniki in Greece, Regensburg in Germany, and of course Madrid, which is going to be the topic. So that's really a pity. So my knowledge is mostly based on books and on the exchange with the experts. So yeah, I will try to provide as much information as possible, but we never had the opportunity to have the boots on the ground and to see their analysis methods because of COVID. But about the project, I can tell you that the project was very fruitful and interesting because it combined two essential topics. It's the topic of emerging mobility solutions and the topic of transport modeling. The latter is basically the entire idea that we created a so-called decision making tool, the decision support tool, which I will talk about a little bit later. This tool is fed with mobility data, and that helps urban mobility planners to decide where to put certain public transport routes, but also how to alter traffic flows. And transport modeling can also help on the decision-making process on, for example, how to deploy shared bikes. So where do you want to deploy them? Where do you want to install certain stations or whatever? And the transport modeling is using a huge variety of existing data sets from various sources, for example, traffic counters, weather, shared bikes, etc. And so transport modeling is basically a very complex topic, which is very new to most cities. So that's why Momentum is really helpful because A, we created a tool for transport modeling, but also we provided an idea or a notion on how transport modeling can help these four cities, which were the pilot cities in our project. And basically, traffic models and transport modeling can create um, an opportunity to assess the transport demand and supply. So data is filled into models that are being developed, where you have information about the demand side. So how much money citizens are willing to pay, and the supply side, for example, how many buses or e-scooters or shared vehicles are deployed or are available. So as I've said, we have in the project we have the two essential topics, the transport modeling, but also the emerging mobility solutions. I will just also give you a very brief introduction on what that is actually. So emerging mobility solutions is basically a very fancy word, which again is a very broad topic. It includes mobility solutions that that came up in recent years since we have a broad digitalization. So nowadays everyone has a smartphone and everyone has mobile internet, and this this pocket computer that everyone has in his or her pocket now allows you to unlock, for example, e-scooters from companies such as Lime, Dot, Tier, or Bird, but also e-bikes or bikes, or they can be both free floating. That means you just drop them somewhere, or there are at dedicated spots. But also emerging mobility solutions are autonomous vehicles or autonomous shuttles. So those are driverless vehicles that are using the functions of a bus, but also MaaS, that's mobility as a service. I will talk about these different topics in the later stage as well. Um, so emerging mobility solutions is basically the third pillar uh, between private transport, that would be cars, bikes, or if you just walk, public transport, such as metros and trams. And this third pillar, these emerging mobility solutions, cities are not very aware of these solutions because they're relatively new. So the entire idea of planning with them and integrate them into the existing planning tools, this was basically the idea of the Momentum project. So basically, future-proofing cities across Europe. And of course, we tried to share the results that we had also with our wider audience of cities, because you have to imagine autonomous shuttles or vehicles, they exist, and those are mostly pilots. And mobility as a service, this also exist, but it's also mostly on the pilot level. So that means that cities need to prepare now and need to make decisions whether or not they want to use these tools in the future, and then they need to prepare for that either by yeah, structuring the infrastructure or make digital investments. And so therefore the aim of Momentum is to provide planning tools and help cities to be prepared for this eventuality. So my best example is always that you probably remember a couple of years ago when suddenly all those e-scooters were, let's say, dumped on our streets, on the European cities.
Yeah.
And then basically cities had to consider, okay, what are we actually going to do with them? And nowadays, planning tools exist, and Momentum is one of these potential planning tool, or that was one of the results of the Momentum project.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen myself in different cities. You have all these new types of e-scooters, e-bikes, and also each city has their own rules of whether they are allowed or not, whether if you can park anywhere or just in dedicated spots. So I guess it must be very challenging to know how to correlate these both ways of transport. Do you have, as of today, or could you briefly explain how both like old and new ways of mobility can relate in the public transportation?
Yes, the uh, regarding the emerging mobility solutions, what we have seen that also each city, not only the four pilot cities, but also the ones that I'm visiting as part of my work, they have different ideas. So, for example, for the free floating bikes and e-scooters, they have created parking zones. They have defined specific geo-blocked areas where, because each of these mobility solutions have these GPS devices included, and this is also the technology, or the modern technology, and also the price of modern technology went much down, and therefore these solutions even came across 10 or 15 years ago. This would not have been possible. So what we've seen in cities that the planning basically started around the time when the call for this EU-funded project also started. When we look at Madrid, and I will go into details about this later, that we basically started in 2019, and the hype was really high. And now we've seen that a lot of fluctuation is also happening in the market, and that is basically very challenging for cities to prepare for this, because if you're not giving out licenses, you might have the problem that solution A or solution B or provider A or C already has disappeared once you have created rules. So those are all challenging situations that the cities are facing.
Yes. And coming back to Madrid, because it's also my market, Madrid is strongly committed to more sustainable and innovative mobility. And in 2019, the city presented its 360 strategy to reduce pollutant emissions to comply with the EU limit values. Is that why you decided to do, or one of the cities to be the pilot was Madrid?
It's actually quite a short question, but I need to have a bit of a longer answer.
Okay.
To be fully transparent, how EU projects are organized is basically that the decision for Madrid is also based on the fact that, because emerging mobility solutions and the transport modeling of this needs to work in every city of every size. And Madrid was, of course, chosen because of their ambitious plans, but also because it's a huge city. It has more than 3 million inhabitants. But in the consortium, where we have the four pilot cities, we basically also have cities like my neighboring cities here from Brussels, Leuven, which only has 100,000 inhabitants. Regensburg has 150,000, and Thessaloniki has 800,000. So the idea was, we wanted to create the transport modeling tool that would function for most of the data sets that are available, but also for different sizes of the city. So that was those are basically the two reasons that were basically used to select Madrid as a consortium partner, and basically EMT, which is the bus and one of the transport providers. They're actually the project coordinators. I forgot to mention that. So basically, the four cities that we chose was also for different reasons. So, for example, for Leuven, we chose them because they had a plan to review their so-called circulation plan, so clearly defined rules where motor vehicles can go and where they cannot go, where they can enter the city and leave the city. But they were also focusing on shared vehicles, and the topic of autonomous vehicles that I was mentioning as part of the emerging mobility solutions, that was assessed by Regensburg. Thessaloniki more or less built a tool and looked at bike and car sharing, and then Madrid at the end has the big city has a lot of offers. What I've already mentioned. By the time we started the project, they had a dozen of shared mobility solutions: cars, bikes, e-scooters, and therefore the emerging mobility solutions in Madrid was very important. And the Madrid metro system and the public transport system has is basically huge. It has like 13 lines, more than 200 stations, but also the commuter railway and the urban bus has it's all a huge network. So basically, um, it sprawls out and even goes into the larger functional urban area of Madrid. And there, the assessment was that the last mile from and to the door to the public transport solutions is really important, and we made some assessment there regarding the Madrid 360 strategy. That was part of your question. Basically, there we need to see that Madrid has a air quality challenge, basically. So EMT, the project coordinator, which is the fleet manager for the bus fleet, decided to renew the fleet, so zero emission vehicle purchases, but they also want to reduce the emission and the pollution by access restrictions, so by urban vehicle access regulations, UVAs, and they're also trying to renew the parking policies. So basically, the entire idea, the ambitious plans, which are bound to be implemented until 2025 and 2030. These two planning horizons are basically very much a holistic plan. And then the emerging mobility solutions that we have been talking about is one important piece of the puzzle to reduce emissions and to increase the livability in the city. And the fact that the sustainable urban mobility plan goes until 2030, the city needs to plan for these emerging mobility solutions. So that's why Momentum helped them to decide, okay, where can these solutions help in getting the people from A to B, but also reducing emissions.
Absolutely. And as you're mentioning, you are studying the usage of suburban micromobility models compared to downtown, in this case, Madrid. And naturally, there's much higher population density in the city. And where do you get the data on the use of different mobility services, and how do you ensure that they are comparable?
The good thing, or the one sentence answer, would be that the data sets were already available and they were already integrated, at least partially. Just to give you a brief example, I've mentioned EMT as the project coordinator, which provides the buses, but also what I've not mentioned, they also have shared bikes in their I wouldn't say portfolio, but they're taking care of that. And then you have three other entities, which is the Madrid Region Transport Council, and they already have a macroscopic transport model that is used for transport planning purposes. And then they also have a transport authority and EMT, and they also have a macroscopic model from the company called PTV. So PTV Visum is the standard traffic analysis tool and the forecasting tool for many cities. I mean, it's a German company which is used all over Europe, and so there they already had a system which included the data from the traffic counters, ticketing data from subway and railway systems, but also other data sets. And then the fourth entity that was one of our project partner called AIMSUN, that is a software company for transportation planning and traffic management, and they have also provided a lot of expertise. So and basically the project spent an entire work package. So that means like entire 15-20% of our time of the 3-year project we spent on data collection. So and the potential of data integration into a potential transport modeling system. So we even looked on additional data sets for Madrid, which was, for example, origin destination matrices. So what I've said about the demand side, where do people go from A to B, but also where are the locations of attractions. So in the city center, where do people tend to go? Where are the locations where there's a lot of commerce, but also data sets regarding weather. So therefore, we had a lot of data sets that were be able to integrate it in the analysis. Again, I have to apologize a little bit. I'm not a data expert, so this is basically for the general public. As I would explain to you, we have a great homepage where you can dive deeper into the deliverables, and you can find further information on that.
I for sure recommend our viewers to visit your website to get more information and more details. But well, as you also mentioned, you have developed these mobility planning tools based on this data collected. How do they work? Who is using them? And how do they have to design these mobility offers? It's a little bit what you just mentioned with these OD matrices and the collection of different sources of data.
Yeah, I would highlight that that our solution, as I was mentioning, is the so-called decision support tool, and we have developed this in cooperation of all 4 cities, and some experts from Thessaloniki have developed it, and then it was tested. Basically, I would like to highlight such a tool is necessary because I'm coming from the city perspective, let's say, and often cities decide to build a tram or a bus line into a new developed or a new development area. So, for example, we have housing development or economic development areas at a specific area of the city, and then the city council maybe decides, okay, we need to build a tram or a bus line there, and then often a post-implementation analysis is done. So the bus route is set out, and then analysis is taken. Okay, what is the average ridership, and what is the average satisfactory percentage, or what I was mentioning with the post-implementation analysis for e-scooters. The provider, as I was saying, drops 1,000 free-floating e-bikes or e-scooters, and then we are checking how the users are using these mobility tools. So transport planning actually helps cities to make evidence-based policy planning. That's the entire idea of such tool, and the biggest prerequisite for such planning is that the data is available. So if you have no data, you cannot make any analysis, which is pretty obvious. So so we first tried to gather that data, what I was answering to you in the last question, and then we created this decision support tool that that cities can use it to have a user-friendly interface for the data analysis, and it can be used even if not much data is available. So the tool is working on 3 levels. I will explain that a little bit later, but it's a free tool, and there's a dedicated homepage for it, and there's even development support. So if you are interested, I will talk later about the homepage where you can access it. But even if you are a transport planner in a city and you only have some information regarding demographic data or some basic interest in emerging mobility solution deployment, you could still use the tool. So basically the 3 levels are that they are basically consecutive. So the first level, you need low amount of data. For the second level, you need medium amount of data, and then on the third level, you need to have quite advanced level of existing transport modeling already. So for the level 1, you need, as I said before, you need the demographic and the socioeconomic data, and then you can do analysis on vehicle sharing, on-demand taxis, on free-floating scooters, and on-demand transport solutions, so DRT solutions. And due to the limited amount of necessary input data, assumptions will be made that decision makers can receive an initial estimation that can be used for some or another planning process. So you basically have a tool where you provide the socioeconomic data. So what would be the price per minute for an e-scooter, for a shared e-scooter, for example, and how many people might use it, and then it can calculate how many e-scooters, for example, should be deployed, or in a dedicated area, it can assess where certain stations should be located, and how far they should be away from each other, basically on a grid. And then for the level 2 and the level 3, for the level 2, you need OD matrices, so origin destination matrices, to support the decision-making processes. And for level 3, you need a high amount of data, and there we have the aim sum integration. So there's a simulation platform integrated where you can assess the potential of shared mobility services such as demand responsive transport, car sharing, bike sharing, and we have tried to create something that is available for every city and for every level of advancement, because we have also realized in the 4 cities, which were our pilots, that the entire topic is still relatively new to them.
Wow, it's quite a complete solution. But we're already in the last question. So also with your answer, you can also then share with us where you can find all this website and the further information. I believe that, again, in this Madrid case, one of the biggest goals to establish this last mile option is to actually get more passengers to the public transport.
Of course, yeah.
And these additional offers, of course, come with additional cost. Plus, we know that people are very emotionally attached to their cars. So it's also another challenge to convince them that using other method of transport is a valid option for everyone. So what I would like to know is the city of Madrid considering this and trying to embed the last mile offers into the public transport ticketing system to make it more financial attractive?
Yeah, basically, I need to provide you with some general information. So, as I said, the project coordinator EMT Madrid is also operating the bike sharing solutions with several million rides annually. So, they basically the modal share that currently exists in Madrid is already quite favorable for cycling, walking, and public transport. So just to give you an impression, less than 40% of the trips are done by car. So the the topic that I will try to explain now is less about reducing the car rides, but to promote public transport. Of course, this often goes hand in hand, but taking into consideration that a liter of petrol in Spain already costs like €1.80, and the 10 ride ticket, I've checked that before our conversation, is between 11 and 12 euros. So you can go either with your car 100 kilometer in the city and be stuck in traffic, or you can ride 10 times with a bus or a metro or one of the other amazing transport solutions. So already a great solution available for to keep your car in the garage. But your question is, of course, how to get better ridership for public transport. Theoretically and also practically, a mass solution will be needed. So mobility as a service, where you have one solution, which is an app where you do one payment for one trip, and then you have the integration of emerging mobility solutions such as e-bikes or shared vehicles in the one payment included. But the the positive thing is that MaaS is already being tested by the city of Madrid. So there is an existing MaaS solution, but it's also only a pilot. And due to all the solutions that I've presented in the framework of the Madrid 360 framework, so the discouragement of car users to drive into the city because of a potential reduction of inner city parking space, and also the enhancement of cycling lanes, and all of this is also in increasing the ridership for public transport solutions. So Madrid already has a good plan how to integrate the shared bike solution, which because it's EMT Madrid, which is also operating the buses, but the mobility as a service app, which hopefully is planned to be extended in the future years. That is something that is currently underdeveloped. But of course, mobility as a service is something that is not yet well implemented in any city. Actually, we have cities like Helsinki, which are very much advanced, but MaaS and the other topics are basically something that is very much future oriented. So you can get people only into public transport if the last mile solution can be solved, and that's still something that needs to be enhanced, but that has nothing to do with Madrid. They're already doing a great job, but it's a challenge for every city, because in suburbia, obviously car use is much higher. So in order to provide you a more detailed and a stronger and a more absolute answer, I would like to quote from our final brochure, which is also available on our website, which is h2020-momentum.eu. There we have defined it in the following way, what Madrid did. The data and analytics techniques developed in Momentum have provided a deeper knowledge on the mobility patterns of bike sharing users and moped sharing users, shedding light on the adoption drivers of these services. So, and the role of shared mobility as an attractive alternative to private car use. Knowledge on the use and adoption of bike sharing has been used to coordinate the expansion of the public bike sharing system to the whole city through the Momentum decision support tool that was developed by the project. Yeah, this is basically the overview. So our solutions also has helped Madrid, but the integration of last mile solutions is something that is still a long-term plan, which has been outlined by Madrid with their sustainable urban mobility plan until 2025 and 2030.
Which is around the corner.
Yeah, actually it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately for everyone.
Yes. Well, as you said, this is all this new type of mobility are in very early stages. So let's see. I'm looking for maybe in a couple of years we have the same conversation and we can have more real figures of how it's being developed and how close is the European Union to reach those goals, and also how you in Polis are supporting these different cities to get there. Well, then thank you very much for being with us today. And thank you to our viewers. If you have any further question, you can reach us. Well, you have your your profile linked in the LinkedIn post. You can also send questions to webinar@dilax.com and follow us in the same platform. This has been the last DILAX Lab for this year and completes our webinar series in 2022. So we hope you enjoyed watching, and thank you for your continued support. Wish you nice holidays, and we see us next year.